The price of seeing. Sarah Winters arranged crystals in the window of the crossed keys, each stone catching the late afternoon light. The shop's interior smelled of sage and old books, with wind chimes tinkling softly above the door. 6 weeks into her undercover assignment, and she still couldn't decide if the warmth she felt from certain crystals was psychosomatic or something else entirely. The briefing played through her mind again. Jessica Smith, 19, found dead in her dorm room. No clear cause of death, but her journal mentioned buying specially prepared crystals from this shop. The local detective suspected Madame Rose, but couldn't prove anything. "We need someone who can blend in," her supervisor had said. "Someone who understands how these communities work." Her first week, Sarah had played the role perfectly, the searching soul drawn to metaphysical answers. Madame Rose had hired her almost immediately, those dark eyes seeming to peer straight through her carefully constructed cover story. The other employees were easier to read. Luna, 16 and ethereal, with her silver piercings and combat boots, and Jerome, a gangly 17-year-old whose occult obsession was matched only by his obvious crush on Luna. By week 3, Sarah had mapped the shop's routine. Madame Rose spent most mornings in her private office, emerging only to handle certain special customers. Luna worked after school, somehow always knowing exactly what customers would need before they walked in. Jerome shelved books and organized inventory, stealing glances at Luna while filling notebooks with occult theories and observations. "The crystals feel different sometimes," he'd told Sarah one quiet afternoon, showing her his meticulous notes, "especially the ones Madame Rose keeps in the back cabinet. And did you notice how some customers come back looking tired?" Sarah had noticed. She'd also noticed how Madame Rose selected certain customers for special items, always following the same pattern. Young, healthy, often students or young professionals. People whose disappearance wouldn't immediately raise alarms. During her 4th week, Sarah volunteered to help with inventory, gaining access to the back room. The special crystal cabinet hummed faintly, though she couldn't find any electronic source. Her phone's camera showed strange distortions around certain stones. When she mentioned this to her handler, he'd suggested electromagnetic interference. Sarah wasn't so sure. "You have good instincts," Madame Rose told her one evening, appearing silently behind her. "You sense things others miss." She placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, her grip uncomfortably warm. "Perhaps you're ready to learn more." The next day, Sarah found Jessica Smith's journal stuffed in her locker. The last entry was circled in red ink. "The crystal makes me so tired, but Madame Rose says that's how I know it's working." Luna caught her reading it. "Mom says you're special," she said, twirling a crystal pendant. "Like the others." Her eyes flicked to a wall of photographs. Satisfied customers, Madame Rose called them. Sarah had run background checks on each one. 3 were missing. Jerome's detailed notes proved invaluable. Behind his love-struck doodles of Luna's name, he'd recorded dates, times, and customer descriptions. "This one," he showed Sarah, pointing to a page, "bought a special crystal and stopped coming to her morning classes. And here, this customer's hair turned white overnight." Sarah sent daily reports through dead drops, but the evidence remained frustratingly ambiguous. No toxins showed in preliminary tests. No clear pattern connected the missing persons except their patronage of the crossed keys. Energy, Madame Rose liked to say, is neither created nor destroyed. It merely transfers. In her 6th week, Sarah noticed her own reflection growing paler. The crystal in her locker, a gift from Madame Rose, seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. Luna watched her with increasing interest, while Jerome's worried glances suggested he'd added her name to his notebook of concerns. Then came the invitation to the new moon ceremony. The basement altar room was thick with incense. Sarah counted 4 other specially chosen customers besides herself. Luna stood at her mother's side, face unreadable as Madame Rose directed them to form a circle around a central crystal formation. The raid almost went sideways when Jerome burst in, notebook in hand. "Luna, I figured it out. The crystals aren't just storing energy, they're—" He stopped short, taking in the scene before him. Oh. What happened next unfolded in snapshots, Luna shouting a warning. Madame Rose's face contorting with rage, the crystals pulsing with impossible light. Sarah drawing her concealed weapon. And Jerome, wide-eyed but steady, reciting dates and times from his notebook as backup agents swarmed the room. In the end, the evidence was frustratingly ambiguous. The crystals showed traces of an unknown substance, but also emitted energy readings that made the lab equipment malfunction. Madame Rose was arrested, though the charges were complicated by the inability to determine exactly how Jessica Smith had died. Luna entered witness protection, leaving only a small note in Jerome's notebook. "You weren't stupid about the humming crystals." Sarah's official report stuck to the facts: suspicious deaths, questionable business practices, and a teenage witness with detailed records of shop activities. She didn't mention how all the crystals had shattered simultaneously during the arrest, or how Madame Rose's eyes had glowed in the darkness. On her desk at the FBI field office, a small rose quartz sat in a drawer. On quiet nights, she sometimes caught herself reaching for it, wondering if the warmth she felt was just her imagination, or something more. A question she knew would never have a satisfactory answer. Some mysteries, Sarah had learned, were better left wrapped in uncertainty. The price of seeing clearly, after all, was sometimes higher than anyone was prepared to pay.